Monica from Life is Art and Scrap. It's almost Monday. Let's create. It's November the 24th, and we're going to be doing some scrapbooking tonight. We're going to be looking at a collection that we haven't used yet. It's from the online exclusives, and it is the Otterly Adorable collection of papers. And I don't have anything to show you other than the paper pack itself. So let me just grab that for you. Just pulling it out of the package. So you can see that there are some really cute otters on here, little fishes. Then there's some of these little otters. And there's little fishes amongst the reeds. Then there's this fun scene, and we're going to be using some of this tonight. The back side of that is some river stones. Aren't they gorgeous? And then we've got some little swimming otters. The back side of that is a lovely watery background. And then there's more otters. And there's a nice little crumb cake sort of stone background and some reeds and more water. So lots of fun things going on in this paper collection. And so let me set this aside. We're also going to be using the Charming Duck Pond stamp set, as well as the mini alphabet dies to do our title. And yeah, I guess that's all I need to show you before we start. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching later on replay, you can just drop a comment, and that way I will know that you came by. Alrighty, so we are going to start our layout with the Lost Lagoon paper, and I don't think I've used this yet for a layout. I've used it for other things, but this is a beautiful color called Lost Lagoon. It's one of the coordinating colors for this collection. There's actually quite a few colors in this collection. There are several greens, a few browns, there's calypso coral, there's crumb cake, there's all sorts of things are happening in this collection. Lots of beautiful things. Pool party in there as well. But we're going to start with Lost Lagoon. And I see my mom is watching. Hello. And Deborah's here too. Hey, Janet. Hey, Lynn. Before we start, I'm going to stick this right down to my mat so it doesn't shift around, because we're going to be doing a few things here. So I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive. I'll use my eraser later to take that off. And we'll just stick it right onto our mat, and that way we'll know where it is when we want it. Alrighty, for our layout today, I'm doing something a little bit different. And you remember I showed you that piece of paper that had the otters at the top and then otters swimming in the water below. So this was up at the top of it. Well, what I did was I went ahead and I cut the top 4¼ inches off. So I have this little bit of the water, and then I have these 4 otters that are playing. And then what I did was I took my paper snips and I cut around the outline of all the bushes. There were some little trees that were sticking up here, but it was just the trunks. And so I didn't want that in the background, because what I want to do with this, instead of having it at the top of the pattern paper, I want it at the bottom of my layout. So doesn't that look cute like that? And I'm not going to stick it down yet because we're going to add a few things, but I wanted to start off by showing you that so that you would see where we were going when we get this started. Alrighty, so like I said, one of the coordinating colors for this collection is Calypso Coral. And if you've ever done the technique where you gut out a piece of paper, you know that you cut out the center of a piece of paper. And I did that with some Calypso Coral. First, I cut down my 12 by 12 sheet to 10 inches square. So this was a 10 by 10, and then I gutted out the center, leaving a 1/4 inch strip all the way around, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to center this on my layout. I'm going to remove this because it's going to go on top later. But this is how we're going to start. Now I'm just trying to think the best way for me to attach this. And I'm thinking liquid glue might be the best way to go. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you're trying to put something on that's this large and that has the potential to go awry. So I'm going to put just little dots of glue around the border here. We're basically creating a little frame to start off our layout. Sometimes we do hand-drawn frames. Some people like to stitch with their sewing machines to create a frame. I decided to go ahead and use a contrasting cardstock to make a frame. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this gets lined up 1 inch in from the edge. So I think what I'm going to do to help me with this process is I'm going to put my ruler down here lined up at the 1 inch mark. And then I will gingerly, it's always gingerly, pick up my little frame here and try to get it lined up somewhat 1 inch in from the edge. You know, if I had put my ruler so that it lined up, then I would actually have the inch marks to go by. So let's try that again. We're going to line it up with my ruler and then hope that it falls into place. And I think it did pretty good. We're just going to gently push that down. I don't want to get glue everywhere, but we want it to adhere. Yay! I think I got it in the center. It's always a little bit difficult trying to get something that skinny lined up because it tends to want to pull one way or another. So sometimes you just have to line it up and let it fall. And in the falling process, it kind of pops back into the right position. All right. Whew. Good. We've got that done. All right. Now our next step, inside that frame, I wanted to add a matting for my photos. So I have a piece of basic white that I have cut to 9 1/4 inches by 8 1/2, and that's because I was using an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of paper. So this is 9 1/4 by 8 1/2. So it's not going to fill this entire space, but that's okay because remember, we have our paper that's going on down here at the bottom. So it's going to cover up that little gap, and so we don't need to worry about it. Okay. Now, one thing that I want to do is I want to do a little bit of stamping on this white paper. And I kind of want to do it before I stick it down in case I make a boo-boo. If I make a really bad boo-boo, I can flip it over and use the other side. We know how that goes, right? I'm sure I'm not the only person who has ever had to flip a piece of paper over and use the other side, right? But what I want to do is I want to know where the edge of my little greenery here is. So I'm going to just gently with my pencil trace sort of the outline. I probably don't even need to do all of it, just the highlights. But I'm just going to go along here and mark out the edges. Okay, that's probably good enough. Just so that I have an idea of where that's all going to sit. Then the stamp that I want to use, if you notice here, I'll bring it back in, on this piece of paper, we have some things going on here. We've got bushes, we've got grasses, we've got cattails, we've got the little log, we've got rocks, we've got a little tumbling brook happening here. We've got our little otters. So from the charming duck pond, I realized we have this nice little cattail stamp. And I wanted, because I took out those tree trunks that were in behind here, I want to kind of add a little bit here just to fill in this space a little bit. So I thought if I added those cattails here, that would kind of work. So let me just scooch that out of the way. I've got the stems and I've got the cattail tops, and I've got two ink colors here. I've got Garden Green and Pecan Pie, and those are also both coordinating colors with this Otterly Adorable collection. So I'm going to start first with the Garden Green. We're going to get our little, yes, you can see it. I'm just checking to make sure we're not out of the frame. We're going to get our little cattails. And we're going to come over here. Let me see. I want to be a little bit to the left of the rock. We're going to stamp those cattails. We're going to come again to the right side. We'll stamp another bit of cattails. And it doesn't really matter if I go off the edge because you're not going to see it anyway. I was being careful that I wasn't, but it doesn't really matter. And then let's add one more little bunch of cattails on this side, just because we like threes. So why not have three? Let's close that up. And then the Pecan Pie is what we're going to use to stamp the little bits on our cattails. You know what I'm talking about, the little bits, the cattail parts of the cattails. There we go. We're just going to go ahead and stamp them. You just line them up as best you can and stamp them on there like so. Doesn't that look cute? And now let's give the test with our pattern paper here and see how it looks. Yes, I think that worked out pretty well. Yes, yes, yes. We filled in a little bit of space there. And now what I want to do, just in case it shows, before we stick anything down, I'm going to use my eraser and just gently erase those pencil lines. And you want to make sure you have a good eraser for this. And there we go. Just going to pick that up. And then we can go ahead and stick this down. And I'm right near the end of my roll for this. So in a second, I'm going to have to grab a new roll, which I got ready. I was prepared somewhat for this eventuality. How's everybody doing tonight? It got a little bit chillier out today than it has been. I went out to do some grocery shopping this morning. Well, I intended to go this morning. It was more like noon when I went, but that's okay. It got done. And boy, it was a bit chilly out there. Now, I was also trying to decide if I was going to pop this up. I don't think I will. I'll leave it flat. Yep, there we go. That's the end of the roll. Let me grab the other one. I'm going to leave this flat, but I'm going to pop up a few other things. So that'll be fun. I don't often pop things on layouts. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on my mood, I guess. If you always pop things on your layouts, then when you put your layouts into your album, you're going to find that you can put less layouts in an album. So if you're trying to conserve space in your album, then avoid using dimensionals and or just use them not on everyone, here and there, when needed. There we go. But it's totally up to you. Sometimes you don't need a lot of pages in an album if you're doing a smaller album for a particular event. All right, so we've got that done. We're just motoring along here. This is actually not going to take us very long tonight. I've got some photos, and these are photos that you may have seen before. And let me see. I have pictures of my kids playing in the pool. This is actually it's a sandbox that you buy, you know, those molded plastic sandbox, and it has like a stone looking edge around it. It's got a lid, and we bought it for Justin when he was really little. It never ever once had sand in it. Not on purpose anyway. There might have been bits of sand in there just by accident. But it was always used with water. So my kids called it their pool, and this was probably one of the last times they ever used it as a pool because they got to be too big for this pool. And so they kind of outgrew it, and that's okay. That happens. That's life. We outgrow things. We move on in life, and you know. So they were given, you know, Justin gave Julia the bunny ears, and Joshua gave Justin the bunny ears, and then they were splashing each other and just having lots of fun, and they're just kind of hanging out in the pool. And I thought it was kind of cute that it kind of went along with the little otters playing. And even though it's not necessary to have anything to do with otters on this, with this paper, you totally don't need to. But I thought it was cute that they're playing in the water and they're my little otters. So let's go ahead and stick these down. And what we're going to do, because I've used the white as my matting, I don't need to add any extra matting. I'm just going to use that as my matting for everything. I had contemplated putting a matting in behind these two smaller photos. I suppose I should tell you what size these photos were. They're about 4 inches by 2 3/4, these larger ones. And then these two are actually two different sizes. This one is 3 inches by 2 3/4, and this one is 3 inches square. It's just because that's how they came out when I printed them. And you just go with what you got, right? So let's go ahead and add these on here. I'm going to hopefully line them up in some semblance of order. We'll see about that. We don't know. It may or may not line up. I want to have them approximately evenly spaced. And then we'll add this one. And then because I had weird shapes of photos, I decided that these last two are just going to be a little bit offset. They're going to be just a little wonky. We're going to do them wonky on purpose. And so we're just going to stick that down. And then let's add some adhesive on these. So we've done a few things today. We did some gutting out, although I didn't show you how to do the gutting out, but I've shown you that before, so I figured it was probably good. Trying to decide if that's going on top. I think maybe like that. Trying to make some executive decisions. I had thought about matting these two separately, but then I decided not to. I decided just leave them the way they are. There we go. Because I like that nice crisp white in behind. The Lost Lagoon is a gorgeous color, but it has sort of gray undertones. So I wanted to brighten it up a little bit. So I thought that the Calypso Coral and the white kind of did that. I really like how those cattails kind of, you know, melded in. So you know me, and you know I like fussy cutting, hence the fussy cutting across the bottom here. So I also went to one of the pages and I got this little otter cut. I think he's just so cute. He's like lounging around with his little paws in the air. And he looks super cute. So we're going to add him on here. And you know what? I was thinking about popping him up with foam tape. In fact, I was going to pop him up with dimensionals. But now that I've stuck it down there, I think he's just going to go down as is. We're not going to make any fuss about him. even though he's so cute. So of course I had to fussy cut him out. And instead of, this is a technique I like to use, instead of going around his shape at the bottom, I kind of came out and in and out and in and out and in. We're using very horizontal, ovally lines. And that helps kind of give him a place, right? He's got some grounding. And so we're just going to add him on here, hang it out at the top of the frame. I don't want to cover up Justin's head. And then for our title, I've gone ahead and cut out some letters with the mini alphabet dies. And I have a collection of letters that I have cut out in black and white. And sometimes I use color. But if you cut them out in similar colors every time, then when it comes time to creating titles, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just pull letters that you have from your, baggie of little letters, and then that, I'm trying to talk and spell at the same time. We're going to spell out Splish Splash. If you've got all the same colors, then you can pull what you have before you have to cut more, right? That's what I'm trying to say. You don't always have to start from scratch every time. Make sure I got it the right way around. We're going to do Splish Splash, because there was a lot of splishing and a lot of splashing going on in the pool this day. I'm trying to remember if these pool even came to this house with us. I think it did, but it never got used. They had kind of outgrown it. And we actually bought a pool to go out on our back deck at the beginning of COVID. And I think we actually bought 2 of them in case one gave away. I think they were inflatable. You know what? We never ever inflated them. One of these days, maybe we'll do it this summer. It'll be big enough for like one of us to sit in at this point, but it could be fun. All right, so I've got some glue on my hand because I find that's the easiest way to glue these little intricate things down. Just tap it into the glue, tap off on your hand. It's okay. The glue will peel off later, or you can wipe it off. And I'm just trying to decide. I think I'm going to have them slightly below the Calypso coral little border there, but not quite touching the white. We'll see how that goes. Splish Splash. My kids used to watch a show when they were little, the boys. It was called the Rub-a-Dubbers. And they had the Splish Splash Splosh. And it was cute. It was all the bath toys that would come alive when the kids weren't around the bathroom. A bit like Toy Story, right? Where everything comes alive. And they would sing little songs and have little adventures. They had a catchphrase. What was it? It was either I wonder or I wish or something like that. I wonder what would happen if. Maybe one of you guys has watched the Rub-a-Dubbers and would know what they said, but I thought it was cute. They would go on little adventures, and then of course at the end of the adventure they would hear the kids coming for their nighttime bath, and they would all have to go back to just being bath toys. My kids thought it was cute. Maybe it was if only. I think that was the phrase, if only. Splish Splash. And I'm squishing it a little closer than I was when I first laid them out, but I like it this way. And this is how it's going, so that's how it's going to be. Splish Splash. I like using one big mat for photos sometimes because it just ties everything together. And I found with the pattern paper that I was using, the designer series paper and the cutout, and then how busy my photos were, I needed something to kind of be a grounding spot, something that was a little less busy. And so I first just had it on the base page, then I added the border, and then I thought, you know what, I need something else. And I don't want individual mats because that's just going to make it feel more busy. But by adding that single mat in a very plain color, white, it gave us the opportunity to do our stamping down here. And it also allowed for that sort of rest from the busyness. And so there we go. That is our completed layout. It did not take us long at all. Now, of course, I had done my fussy cutting ahead of time, but we fussy cut that lovely little scene there at the bottom with all the utterly adorable otters. And we added in our gutted out frame, followed by our mat. We did some stamping with our I want to say Lily Pond Lane, but it's the Charming Duck Pond stamp set, adding in those little cattails and garden green and pecan pie. Then we've got our little fussy cut otter up there in the corner, our Splish Splash title, and the fun photos. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that layout come together. I hope I gave you some helpful tips. And if you create a layout like this, be sure to snap a photo of it and pop it in the comments under where I post my layout. And then we can all see and be inspired by your artwork. All right. Have a wonderful evening and a great week ahead. We'll see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye.